When I reflect on my childhood, I jokingly say that I thought my mother had a drug problem. That's because I got drugged to church every Sunday, drugged to Bible study every Wednesday, choir rehearsal was Tuesday, then there was praise team practice on Thursday, and then we had Sunday school and vacation Bible school, and y'all, I seriously thought my mother had keys to the church. I didn't understand why we just didn't do our due diligence, go on Sunday, call it a day. But what I know now is that she was instilling things that are so tightly close to my core, I don't know that I would exist without them. It was not just the Bible, but it was its principles of compassion, equity, and justice. These principles have served as my moral compass for my entire life, and they show up in my roles as a wife, a mother, and a psychologist. You see, I've been working in the field of mental health for about 10 to 12 years, but it's been in the last 3 years that my personal and professional passions have collided and given me the unique opportunity to bring compassion, equity, and justice to the delivery of mental health. I work for Momentous Institute. We're a local nonprofit committed to rebuilding and repairing social emotional health in children and in families. We've been around for about 100 years, providing services in a pretty traditional way. It hasn't been until recently that we began providing services in the southern sector. You see, this was new and uncharted territory for us, but we were excited to bring our training, assessment, therapy skills to a part of our city that didn't have access to these resources. Now, I'm here to tell you, there's a right way and a wrong way to enter into a community. Unfortunately for me, but fortunately for you all, I went about this in some of the wrong ways, and I learned some lessons about how to lead with compassion, equity, and justice, and to avoid the pitfalls of fake equity. What's fake equity? Well, really it's just a made-up word from a blog that I follow. But if we think about it, if equity is fair and just treatment for all, fake equity is the opposite of that. It's fake. It doesn't exist to elevate or benefit people. It exists to benefit you. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. The first lesson I learned was learn to listen, listen to learn. Again, that's learn to listen, listen to learn. When we first started in this endeavor of bringing our mental health services into Southern Dallas, we had a challenge. Someone told us that we could fit the city of Atlanta inside what is considered to be Southern Dallas. That's to say that Southern Dallas is huge. So we had to figure out, where do we even start? My colleagues and I, we sat down, we looked at a map, and we looked to see where are the residents of Southern Dallas most likely to congregate. Guess where this took me, y'all? To a church. When we looked at the map, there was often 4 to 5 churches within the same block. So we made a list, we divided it up amongst ourselves, and we went out and embarked on a listening tour. We wanted to hear from the residents of Southern Dallas about their parts of town. Now, when we were out and we came back and we debriefed, it turned out I had a whole lot of luck meeting with folks. You wanna know why? I went after church on Sunday. I went after choir rehearsal on Tuesday. I went after Bible study on Wednesday. Thanks, Mom. We also went to schools and community centers and neighborhood association meetings. Now, here's where we talk a little bit about fake equity. Oftentimes, we try to pass our projects off as equity work, but really they're about us. You see, if your project perpetuates existing power dynamics, where traditional groups hold all of the power and the people that you intend to serve hold none, that's fake equity. So remember, I told you we had this idea. We wanted to bring our mental health services into Southern Dallas. So when we were on this listening tour, I was listening, but I wasn't really listening. You see, I thought I had something that they needed, and if I built it, they would come. Well, when you listen in that way, you miss so much. It becomes about you and your infinite wisdom, not about the people, about their stories, about the emotions that they connect to their experiences. So I reflected on this misstep. I went back, I'm back in the community, I'm on the listening tour, and I found myself sitting with a pastor. He was talking to me about his congregation and that they had a large group of grandparents raising grandchildren and the joys that that brings. Went a couple of blocks down the road and found myself with another pastor that was talking about they had a large elderly population that was struggling to keep up with the ever-changing trends of technology. So in response, they developed a bi-monthly meeting for the folks in their congregation to learn more about technology, particularly social media. Now, if I hadn't been learning to listen and listening to learn, I would have missed this opportunity to connect people in the community to resources in their backyard that they identified they needed to make them better. Sometimes learning to listen and listening to learn is about being helpful, even when it's outside of your scope. That takes me to lesson number 2. Lesson number 2 is see value. See value in people, places, and experiences. Seeing value means honoring the history. It means acknowledging both the struggles and the triumph. It means appreciating the resilience. It also means respecting the journey. You see, so often we, and I say we because I'm included, we go about the business of community engagement. And when we do so, we show up wearing all of our privilege, dripping with our entitlement. Well, what do I mean? We host listening sessions with no follow-up. We have events at times and places that aren't easily accessible to the residents they intend to serve. We have all of our materials on our talks in English only. We use jargon and acronyms that only we understand. I don't think I need to explain how that's fake equity at its best, but I will for the people in the back. You see, here in Dallas, there are stark differences between the North and the South. In a Grow South report put out by former Mayor Mike Rollins, it noted that Southern Dallas comprises 45% of the population, but only 15% of the taxable income. On the flip side, the North Side has 55% of the population and 85% of the taxable income. And wait for it, 95% of the jobs. Let that sink in for a minute. You see, we don't have time here today to talk about all the history and systems that created those differences, but we will talk about the actions and the attitudes that sustain them. You see, those numbers paint a picture and create a narrative that there is nothing of value in Southern Dallas. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. I want to introduce you to a group of folks that we met on our listening tour. They're neighbors of the Deepwood neighborhood. They had been residents for over 40 years, and prior to that time, the neighborhood had been predominantly white. Well, then the neighborhood started to shift, the demographics started to change to be primarily African American, and there was a slowing in the city's response time to residents' concerns. These residents were concerned about a dump, an illegal dump, the biggest illegal dump in Texas. You see, in 1981, trucks moved in and out of their neighborhood, all times of day and night, dumping toxic, cancer-causing waste in their literal backyard. This dump caught on fire twice, once in 1988 and burned for 6 months, filling the neighborhood with smoke, and then again in 1996. This went on for 20 years. I want you guys to imagine, you step out on your porch, you're hit in the face with smoke, poison filling your lungs. This was their reality for 20 years. They ended up suing the city for not imposing their own rules related to code compliance. At the time that the dump closed, it contained enough trash to fill a standard city block, and it would have been as tall as Reunion Tower in downtown Dallas. In 2003, the city reached an agreement under the Trinity River Project and decided to build an Audubon Center on top of this reclaimed landfill. In 2008, the Audubon Center opened as a teaching and event space, free to the residents of that zip code. Also constructed on top of the reclaimed landfill is the Trinity Forest Golf Club. Now, how do you all hear this story and not hear the strength of the people in Southern Dallas? How do you hear that story and not see the beauty in the land of Southern Dallas? How do you also hear and not hear the unfair, inequitable treatment of the people in Southern Dallas? It's a narrative that there's nothing there. You see, guys, My friends in the community say that do-gooders come down to pet the poor, make themselves feel good. We have the opportunity to do so much more. We can walk with communities, advocate for communities, help them unleash their superpowers, to use their strengths to conquer their struggles. But we can only do that if we see value in people, places, and experiences. Now, along with my mother and her faithful church attendance, my father always impressed upon me the fact that we are all blessed to be a blessing. And with that, you should leave a place better than the way that you found it. That's lesson number 3. Leave a place better than the way that you found it. I want to tell you about a group of folks that I've had the great fortune to work with over the past 3 years that's doing just that, leaving a place better than the way that they found it. That place is Bonton Farms. It's literally a farm in the hood. Now, those of you all that know me know that I would rather be anywhere in the world besides a farm. But this isn't just any farm. It's an urban farm in a food desert, which means that the residents that surround the farm have up to a 3-hour round-trip commute on public transportation to the nearest grocery store. Then they can only buy what they can carry, and they can only buy things that are going to withstand an 1.5-hour bus trip ride home, often in the Texas heat. So the farm is providing fresher food options closer to home. They're also providing jobs and housing and hope. See, I told you this isn't just any farm. At the time that our paths crossed, they were looking for a community partner to help support the wellness program, portions of their program. And Momentous came alongside to support that endeavor. Let me pause for a minute and tell you an example of what not to do. So remember, we talked about doing community engagement, and we show up dressed in all of our privilege, dripping in our entitlement. That was me. So I showed up to my first meeting at the farm wearing 3-inch heels and a pantsuit for a meeting that largely took place in a goat pen. People come to the farm from all walks of life, formerly incarcerated, doing drugs, selling drugs, homeless, and they're looking for a change and a chance. Momentous has been able to come alongside them and provide therapy services to the people that come to them for help. We've also been able to provide both training and consultation to their staff and their stakeholders to teach them about how trauma and poverty impact the brain and change behavior. And you see, that's important because when you're on the farm, you might meet somebody who was born into generational poverty, witnessed community and domestic violence daily, got kicked out of a school that didn't even have enough books. And they thought, with no family, no resources, no education, their only choice was to sell their body or to sell drugs. That choice landed them in prison. Now they're out of prison. They're at the farm. They're looking for a change and a chance. But the conditions haven't changed. They still have no family, no education, and no resources. Now, we all want them to make good choices. Keep your head down, work hard, and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They're looking at us like, what the hell are bootstraps? You see, when you see value in people, places, and experiences, you build a farm. And on that farm, you don't just give people jobs, but you pour into them the things that they never received, like love. You teach them skills. You connect them to transportation so that when they launch from the farm to their real-world career, they have a way to reliably get there. You connect them to mental health services so that they can start to heal from their traumatic past and get the skills to be able to play nice with others. You build a farm and you leave a place better than the way that you found it. You turn a dead-end street in southern Dallas into a cul-de-sac of opportunity. You see, my sincere hope for all of us here is that we begin to treat people and communities with the care and the respect that they deserve. We only can do that if we learn to listen and we listen to learn. We can do that when we see value in people, places, and experiences. So we can do the meaningful work of making community connections, creating narrative change, and even doing something as crazy and courageous as starting a farm in the hood, so that we all leave this place, this space, this world better than the way that we found it. Thank you.